Yes.
So, good afternoon. We have Wildrose Leader Brian Jean and PC Alberta Leader Jason Kenney here today to discuss the agreement in principle between the two parties. They'll both be making brief remarks, and then we'll be going to the floor for questions. After that, we will be going to the phone for some questions as well. So if you have a question on the phone line, please press *1. Following questions, we will have a signing of the agreement in principle between the two leaders.
Today is a very exciting day for the future of our province. I want to say, first of all, a big thank you to the members of the Wildrose who have trusted me to take us to this point. It was at my very first general meeting as the leader of the Wildrose Party that I first broached the subject of consolidating Conservatives in Alberta. The fact is, it was apparent at that time, from the very start, just how damaging the NDP would be to our economy and to the livelihoods of hardworking men and women across our province. Since that point, Albertans have seen just how painful the tenure of the NDP has been. We've seen the worst 2 years of economic downturn since the 1980s. We've seen over 100,000 Albertans lose their jobs. And we've seen a government who refuses to listen to the principle of do no further harm. Through these past 2 years, I've seen Alberta and I've seen Albertans who are down, but they are never out. This downturn has shown me the true character of everyday Albertans. They are resilient beyond belief. It's because of those Albertans that I fight every day for the future of our great province. Today, Jason Kenney and I are announcing we have an agreement in principle that would unify our parties under the United Conservative banner. If approved by the membership of the respective parties, it would set us on a path to regain control of our province for now and for future generations. I am so very proud of the work that was done by our discussion group to bring us to this point today. The foundations of this agreement stay true to the promises that I made to the Wildrose grassroots members, to pursue unity in a way that maintains our principles and, of course, our grassroots way of doing things. I've said it repeatedly because it's true to the core of who I am and what our party stands for, that the members will always be in the driver's seat. The same holds true today. The agreement in principle that you are seeing today must be ratified by the members of the Wildrose. And that's incredibly important to me because Wildrose members are the guiding compass for our party. And I know they will continue to be the heart of the Alberta Conservative movement in the future for generations to come. There's much work left to be done. But the most important thing we can do is remember throughout all of this, it's about unifying Conservatives, and it cannot be based on a principle of gaining power for power's sake. It must be about more than that. It must be about bringing together common sense Conservatives in overwhelming numbers behind a principle of good government that will implement good policies for the benefit of all Albertans. And that is why I am encouraging our members to ratify this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. This is a great day, an historic day for Alberta. Together, we have decided to put our province ahead of our parties, to look to the future rather than the past, because we understand that we are stronger united and that we must focus on the best interests of this province. Today, we are declaring our belief in that we are stronger united and that we will restore hope and opportunity for Albertans. This agreement ensures the defeat of this disastrous NDP government and the election of a free enterprise government that will renew the Alberta advantage. So to many Albertans who are struggling right now, this agreement sends them a clear message that help is on the way and hope is on the horizon. This is a balanced, reasonable agreement that reflects mainstream Alberta values, that incorporates the principles of progressive Conservatives, Wildrosers, and like-minded Albertans. In the words of this agreement, we will, quote, respect the legacies and contributions of both parties to Alberta's public life while moving forward united to ensure a better future for all Albertans. And the United Conservative Party will be a broad coalition of Albertans united in common cause, reflecting the diversity of today's Alberta. As I've said for the past 10 months, this isn't about uniting the right. This is about recreating a big, broad, tolerant, diverse, free enterprise coalition that is committed to such principles as the rule of law, equality of all before the law, and protection of the fundamental rights and freedoms of all. Economic freedom and a market economy which encourages the creation of wealth through free enterprise and the protection of property rights. Compassion for the less fortunate, expressed through progressive social policies that help people to become self-reliant and ensure equality of opportunity. A robust civil society made up of free individuals, strong families, and voluntary associations. Grassroots democracy and greater accountability of government to the people. Universal health care, high-quality public education and school choice, protection of our natural environment, limited government and fiscal responsibility, and loyalty to United Canada with a government that will defend Alberta's interests. Last July, we launched a campaign to unite Alberta. I want to thank everyone who had the courage to embrace unity. I'd like to thank Progressive Conservative members for giving me a mandate to develop this agreement, and thank all of those who have worked so hard to make this day a reality. I see we have the chair of the Unity Discussion Group, Tanis Fiss, here. I'd like to thank her and all of the members from both parties for their hard work. Every Progressive Conservative member will have the final say on our side on whether to ratify this agreement in a party referendum to be held in July. I look forward to meeting with PCs across the province in the weeks to come as part of an open and respectful dialogue about this unity agreement. Let me be clear. While I'll be advocating a yes vote, I welcome a serious debate and encourage PCs who continue to have doubts or questions to air their views in a real, open, democratic decision. Because at the end of the day, this decision will be made by grassroots members. We are not seeking to impose an agreement on these parties, but rather propose a way forward in a spirit of servant leadership. So I have another message to Progressive Conservatives. If this agreement is ratified, it's not the end of a proud legacy, but instead it is a fresh start and a new beginning, a chance to renew a political family which has been divided for the past decade, a division which resulted in the election of this catastrophic NDP government. And to Wildrosers, I thank you, and I thank Brian, I thank Wildrosers for their contribution to public life, for being a strong voice for fiscal responsibility, democratic reform, and accountability, values that will be reflected at the heart of a united party. I encourage all Albertans who want to renew our great province to get involved in this process. I would invite people to join the Progressive Conservative Party to have your say on our future. And if we do this, if we have the courage to move forward united, we will renew the promise of Alberta as a beacon of hope and opportunity for generations to come. We're happy to take your questions.
Just a note on the questions, we'll have two mics, one in the back as well as one up front here. We ask that you please use the microphone so that those on the phone line are able to hear as well. I'm afraid I can't see behind the cameras, but if there's a mic back there for your first question, feel free to use.
Laurent Pierrot, Radio-Canada. J'ai une question pour Monsieur Kenney. Je suis sur votre droite au fond. Monsieur Kenney, combien ou quelle est la proportion des militants conservateurs que vous vous attendez à voir partir de votre parti à cause de cet accord-là?
Tout d'abord, peut-être je dois faire une petite sommaire de mes remarques en français pour vous, pour dire qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons arrivé à une entente en principe pour unifier ces deux partis avec les valeurs des Albertains historiques. Et je suis ravi que nous aurons, j'espère, l'occasion à présenter une seule partie conservateur, unifiée, pour s'assurer le défi du gouvernement néo-démocrate désastreux dans les prochaines élections. Et j'encourage les Albertains à se joindre au Parti progressiste conservateur dans les prochaines semaines pour participer dans le référendum où ils auront l'occasion de faire les décisions finales. Quant à votre question, depuis le 18 mars, quand j'ai été élu comme président, comme leader du Parti progressiste conservateur, on a vu quelques dizaines des membres qui ont quitté le parti. Et j'ai envoyé un message à tous ces militants qui sont toujours bienvenus au retour du parti. Mais en même temps, il y a un an, le parti a eu 605 500 membres. Aujourd'hui, nous avons 39 000 membres. Alors, si nous avons perdu moins d'une... Effectivement, le total des membres du parti aujourd'hui est plus grand que le 18 mars. Le parti a grandi, s'est élargi depuis mon élection avec le mandat à unification. Donc, il y aura toujours les gens qui ne sont pas heureux avec l'unification, mais ils sont une petite minorité d'après moi.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. This is about a grassroots membership and a movement in Alberta, the conservative movement, and the consolidation of conservatives in Alberta and the people of Alberta having a say on the future of Alberta. This is about listening by the membership, listening by the leadership, and making sure that we do what the members ask us to do, and that is to make sure that we remove the NDP government and to listen to them and to implement policies that they bring forward at our annual general meetings. Very much this particular agreement reflects the foundation of Wildrose, and I believe ultimately the best interest of Albertans moving forward, and that's what this is all about.
We'll go to another question from the floor.
Dan Grummett with CTV. What's it like for both of you, you can decide who answers first, to enter into an agreement that at some point puts you in direct competition with each other?
Well, this is about the best interest of Albertans. This is not about myself or Jason Kenney. It's about making sure that Albertans are listened to, that they get good governments in the future, not just the next 4 or 5 years after the next election, but successive generations thereafter. It's about making sure that Alberta is better off.
Yeah, I've said from day one, this thing is only going to work if people like Brian and I are prepared to park our egos and put the province first, and that's what we're doing here today. Alberta is way more important than the egos or resentments, labels or divisions that have accumulated over the past decade. And I've said from day one, I hope that we attract a good number of talented Albertans offering themselves for public leadership through the by pursuing the leadership of a united party. And if anybody else is chosen leader, they will have my total enthusiastic support. So this isn't about, Brian's absolute bang on, this is not about individuals, it's about the province. And you know, this is an exciting time. I mean, we're going to have tens of thousands of Albertans, the members of these two parties, making an historic decision through grassroots votes this summer. And then a leader they'll be choosing a leader democratically. They'll be defining the policies and the governance of this new party democratically. They'll be choosing the candidates of the United Party democratically, candidates who will go on to be MLAs and ministers of a government that will get our province back on track. So, you know, what do I think about that? I think it's awesome. This is a renewal of democracy in Alberta.
Another question from the floor, please.
Fletcher Kent with Global. That's a lot of things that need to be done here, and on top of that, probably have to create some constituency associations as well. How much work and how difficult is it going to be, do you think, to be able to get everything in place by an anticipated election in 2019?
Well, I think it's going to certainly be a lot of work. We're up for the challenge. Our caucuses are up for the challenge, and I believe our members are up for the challenge. So there's a lot of work, but we have done some preliminary work to be ready for what is coming, and certainly to anticipate, to set aside, and to make sure that our members have as many options going forward as possible. It is a lot of work, and I appreciate the question, Fletcher, but it's worth it. This is about the future of Alberta, and generations of good government means that we'll have a great economy and a great quality of life. And it's all about working for the people, not working for ourselves, and I think that's what public service, some people forget about, is that it's about service to the public, and we're prepared to do that.
Yeah, on March 18th, when I was honored to receive the mandate from PC members to become leader, in my acceptance speech, I said, I'm offering you nothing but a lot of hard work. And we Albertans are always up for a bit of hard work to overcome challenges and adversity. This has never been a simple proposal. Frankly, when I first proposed this unity plan back in July, I think a lot of people thought it was totally impossible. It would never happen. But here we are today. We've made huge steps forward. More to make. We've got to first let the members decide. But you know something? I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm here because I truly believe that if we vote split our way into a second NDP term, they will change the political culture of this province. They will inflict lasting damage on its economy in ways that are difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. This is a risk that we cannot take with the province. This isn't about me or Brian or any individual or party brands. This is about the long-term future of this province. Do we have a government in the future that reflects the basic values of Albertans, a belief in enterprise and hard work, personal responsibility, the creative power of a free economy? Or do we end up with a government that takes us from a second term of the NDP, that takes us from $70 to $140 billion in debt, that more than doubles their carbon tax, that drives out billions more in investment? This is the real choice, and that's why thousands of Albertans are rallying to this cause.
We'll take one more question from the floor before going to the phones.
Okay, my question is aimed mainly at Mr. Jean. It's Graham Thompson from the Journal. You were emphatic before. You wanted this unification to be done under the legal framework of the Wildrose. Why isn't it being done that way? Why did you get that particular aspect of it?
I would disagree completely, Graham. It is being done under the legal framework of the Wildrose. We are incorporated under the Societies Act of Alberta, which gives our membership the most protection, a threshold of 75% to change constitutional issues, good policy and issues, annual general meetings so members can make decisions. This is about being a participant in democracy and unification, and that's why I encourage all Albertans to buy a membership in Wildrose so they can have a true say in democracy and the future of Alberta and whether we have unity or not. We have to have as many people as possible participate so we truly reflect what's going on in Alberta and the future that Albertans want.
So we'll go to the phones now for a few questions and then can come back to the floor when that wraps. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *1.
The first question is from Don Braid of the Calgary Herald. Please go ahead. Mr. Braid, your line is open. I apologize. The first question is from Carrie Tate of the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi guys, thanks for taking my questions. I just want to be clear, and sorry if I missed this. Are both of you running for the leadership of the new party? And why do you think you're the best leader?
Please, Mr. Kenney.
Actually, you know what? The agreement says we're not going to get into a leadership campaign unless or after this is ratified. So I'm going to defer that question to July 23rd.
Thanks, Carrie, for the question. Clearly, we're both running for the leadership of this new party. We believe, obviously, we wouldn't be here today if we didn't believe it was in the best interest of Albertans for democracy to truly have its way. But, you know, we'll have to leave that for when the leadership race actually starts. Right now, today, it's about unity and why we're here today and the best interest of Albertans going forward.
Thank you.
The next call.
The next question is from Don Braid of the Calgary Herald. Please go ahead.
Mr. Jean, you said you can still say that the Wildrose is still there for Wildrose members. I'm a little puzzled. You're forming an association into which, as I understand it, both the PC party and the Wildrose party will be amalgamated. And eventually, but the legal entities will still continue to exist, and you will put up a common slate of candidates. I wish you'd clarify that a bit, because it sounds almost as if you're saying Wildrose marches on, just as your fundraisers are saying on their calls even today.
Thanks for the question, Don. First of all, the law is quite complicated in Alberta, and we've known that for some period of time, and a lot of people have provided some good advice to us on how to proceed, and we've been working with the Chief Electoral Officer as well to move forward and to make sure that we obey, obviously, all the laws, the spirit of the law as well. We see in this particular amalgamation the fact that it's done under the legal framework of the Wildrose, which, as I mentioned, is under the Societies Act and gives members the most amount of control over the political process going forward. I think that's important in our democracy, as it is in any democracy. But I'm very happy that this agreement protects our grassroots way of doing things. It protects the money that has been sent to us by Albertans very generously. It protects our legal framework and the style of the Wildrose Constitution. It protects principles, and it respects the need for unity within the year. Because, quite frankly, Don, I don't believe the NDP deserve a free ride, and we need to hold them to account and have as few distractions as possible and make sure that they give Albertans the best quality of life that they can without the hugest debt that they've piled up in our history.
I ask Mr. Kenney, if you see it the same way, you can tell PC members that their party structure, at least their party heritage parties, you're calling them, I think, will persist into the new movement.
Somehow Don got a follow-up and the guys here didn't. That's not fair. But Don, we're calling them legacy parties in the agreement, which is modeled on the 2004 the language in the federal merger agreement. Yeah, I'm confident that this agreement reflects the core values of progressive conservatives. There was a lot of give and take over the past 7 weeks of negotiations. Our view was that we should defer as many decisions as possible on the new party to the members so that they should decide democratically in the future as opposed to a small group of people kind of hardwiring it, adopting a constitution, for example, at this stage. So I think we're there. We have a draft agreement that will allow for maximum democratic decision making. In terms of the legal issues that I don't think most people are very focused on, the Progressive Conservative Association, for the first 30 years of its existence, was actually registered as a society, and we're going to re-register as a society, and those two societies will come together. We've been in close consultation with the Chief Electoral Officer. But I think at the end of the day, what people want is just one competent, sensible, free enterprise party that's going to bury the hatchet, look to the future and not the past, and be in touch with mainstream Alberta values. That's exactly what this agreement does.
We'll take a final question from the phone before going back to the floor for a couple questions to wrap.
The next question is from Jason Markusov of Maclean's. Please go ahead.
This is mostly for Mr. Kenney, but also for Mr. Jean. Mr. Kenney, you were involved with the Reform and Alliance Party when the party got made fun of a whole lot when it started calling itself the Canadian Concern Reform Alliance Party, or CRAP. UCP is attracting a lot of 8-year-old attention in chatter right now. Tell me about the name. Why did you guys think about it, and did you think that it could be mocked rather easily?
I guess mockery is in the eye of the beholder, Jason. I would say that our Unity discussion group approached the Chief Electoral Officer. They had ongoing conversations about what name the new party could be registered under. And we went through a number of different possibilities. I think most of us wanted to see the Conservative in the title, and the Chief Electoral Officer indicated that United Conservative Party would pass muster. We've done a survey of our members, and it's one of the most popular potential names. So I think it speaks to the basic values and the legacy of the party and the fact that it's united.
Jason, thanks for the question. First of all, I've clearly indicated to members throughout this entire process. I've been across Alberta consulting with members for the last 3 months, and before that for the previous 16, and they've told me that they want the opportunity to choose the name. It's this particular name is the name that the Chief Electoral Officer said that works. This is about a practical, common sense approach on how we unify the two Conservative parties in Alberta, but it's also about listening to members, and I have clearly got an agreement from Mr. Kenney that we will be able to, at the first AGM, if our members so choose, to put forward a different name, and we will obviously have many options to choose from. But that's going to be up to the members, just like it's up to the members to decide on our policy, on our constitution, on our bylaws, and how we proceed, and especially, of course, the new leader of the party.
So we'll go to Rick Dolphin here on the floor, and then a final question to wrap.
Does this work? Yes, it does. 2 questions. First question, what's plan B? If you don't get enough people voting for this, what happens then? How are you going into the next election?
Well, we've actually laid out a plan B in the very last paragraph of the agreement, which basically says that if we can't get this thing ratified, we are prepared to sit down and work out something like a non-competition agreement, or if the NDP were to call if they were to do something completely crazy, something more even crazier than they usually do, and call an election in 2017 before we've put this together, we'd be prepared to do that as well. So we would be prepared to sit down and work out a non-competition agreement, I think, on a local basis, or some other solution that would result in the election of a majority of free enterprise MLAs who could then form a coalition in the legislature. But I think the chances of that are slim to none, but it's always there as a backup.
Second question, what would each of you do as your first act as Premier? Which NDP law would you rescind first?
Rick, first of all, I'd like to answer your first question. Clearly, we have a situation where in this particular agreement between the parties, it contemplates that if we don't reach ratification, that the matter is dealt with. However, we also have, in case of something coming up in between, like an unforeseen election or other movements, litigation, for instance, that may interrupt the process, that we have a Plan B, a break glass plan in case of emergency, where we'd come together and obviously in the best interest of Albertans and respecting our members. So that would be the first thing. As far as the very first act by a Premier Brian Jean would be simply axing the tax, getting rid of the carbon tax, restoring property rights, making sure that we have the ability to recall MLAs that have seen less efficient actions by themselves to the voters of Alberta, because I think that Albertans need the greatest degree of flexibility and consultation and action in the political process, and that's the best way to get good government in the future.
And as I've said, I think the first act of a united Conservative government will be Bill 1, the Carbon Tax Repeal Act. Job number 1 will be restarting Alberta's economy, restoring investor confidence, getting jobs back to our province, getting our province back on track to fiscal order so that we can get our tax rates back down and once again renew the Alberta Advantage.
So we'll go to a final question on the floor from Kim Ternasty, and then the two leaders will sign the agreement in principle.
Gentlemen, I'm just wondering, how likely is it that more people are going to join you in the leadership race? And if so, how many do you think there will be when time comes to make that decision, please? Thank you.
Well, I think it's a very attractive proposition that Conservatives are consolidating in Alberta. I think it's a very interesting one as well, and I'm excited to see other people join our race. We're hopeful that democracy has its way, and I don't anticipate any particular number, but I certainly invite all Albertans to participate in this. It certainly would be great to see a lot of members in our parties supporting the act of unity, and we're hopeful that they will in overwhelming numbers.
Yeah, and I agree. I have no idea, but I've said from day one that I hope we attract a good number of talented people offering themselves for leadership. You know, I think this new beginning that we're starting today is an invitation to a lot of Albertans who've been sitting on the sidelines, dejected by this decade of division. It's an invitation for them to get involved. I think one of the reasons we ended up with this NDP government is a lot of us Albertans just took our stability and prosperity for granted. I mean, half of us didn't bother to vote in provincial elections. I think this NDP government is going to inspire a new generation of Albertans from diverse backgrounds to take some responsibility for our common future, whether as leadership candidates or running to be MLAs. So this is an open invitation. I hope nobody gets the impression that this is going to be a two-person leadership. This is an open Democratic Party, as it says in the second statement in the agreement that Brian and I will sign in a moment. It says that this is a party that reflects the diversity of today's Alberta. We hope to see that in our candidates. And I'm much more interested in how many members the party has than how many leadership candidates we have. We'll be starting out with something like 60,000 members, and it's only going to go up from there. So this is an invitation for fundamental democratic renewal in Alberta. If you buy a membership in one of these two parties now, you get to vote on the unity agreement, you get to choose your leader, you get to establish its policies and its governance. You get to choose your MLA, who hopefully, or your candidate, who hopefully will be your MLA and possibly a minister. So buy a $10 membership in one of these two parties and you get like at least 4 or 5 critical votes. This is a great democratic moment. Let's get people involved.
I would like to say that I'm very excited to sign this document in a few moments. I'm very excited to campaign for unity, to campaign for the best interests of Albertans moving forward. And I trust that Albertans will make the right decision, and I'm hopeful, of course, that they will join our party and have a say in unity and have the say in the future of our great province. Thank you.
Brian, since you wrapped up, I just want to say I want to thank the folks who were on my representatives on the Unity Discussion Group, several of whom are with us here today: Rick McIver, Dave Purewall, Bridget Henniger, Sonia Kant, and especially Tyler Shandro, who put hundreds of hours into this. And I'd like to thank the PC Association Board for its unanimous support for the unity process now, and look forward to a good, open, democratic debate in the weeks to come on the future of our province. Brian, let's get her done.
Yeah, thank you to everybody.
gets to keep the one copy? This is history right here.